Great morning, world. Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon.
Great morning, humans. Great morning, world. This is your boy, Dr. JC Doornick, aka the 52-year-old dragon. So I'm excited. You know, I've like I said in my Facebook post, you guys can go read that on my personal page. I find myself here today. You know, let me get my today successfully making it around, you know, for 52 years. I mean, that's a pretty interesting thing to consider. Just 52 years, you know, so I'm looking at it and say, what have I accomplished? Did I make my time count? And all those things that we actually probably will look at in the last 10 minutes of our life. So I guess for me, my biggest takeaway about that is just, I can't believe I made it. You know, I mean, there's been so many things that have just, you know, made this just an incredible journey. I've lost so many friends, you know, people my age, younger than me, older than me. So I just can't believe that I made it. 52 years, over a half a century. So a lot of gratitude. So welcome everybody to another Rise Up with Dragon, an uprising, you know, of the sleepwalking masses. You know, we're going to remove the blindfolds from your unconscious mind today. And I've got a great one for you. So I want to give a big shout out to all of those in our subscriber area. This one today on Mondays, we always do this. We broadcast this out to everybody. But we rise up every day. So if you want to rise up with me every day and create a focus and get your head screwed on straight and take those blinders off and just start saying, you know, maybe I should release from the typical, because there's got to be more than this. Just go to our Instagram account at Dr. JC Doornick and hit the subscribe button and join that community. We interact with each other every morning, and it's just an awesome environment. So great morning, everyone. Today is called Brain Aware Perception, and it's kind of like my special birthday celebration, Rise Up. July 17th. I'll tell you something funny this morning. I don't know if you guys know this, but I wear these Make Sense glasses all the time. They actually say Make Sense on them. And if anybody ever wants a pair of those, just reach out. I'm going to send a pair to everybody in the subscriber area, but you'll notice that Make Sense glasses don't have lenses, right? Because that's a personal growth, self-development thing. But it's ironic, but I found out that I actually do need glasses, right? So probably for about 10 years. So I went to the eyeglass place here in South Africa. It's called Specsavers, which, you know, just awesome. And the lady behind the counter, ironically, it was her birthday. Right. So rather than just saying, oh my God, I said, and I had a long conversation with her and we actually had a lot in common. So I just want to share that. So when she asked me what kind of frames I want for my glasses, I took these and I showed them to her and she's like, really? And I said, yeah. So the glasses that I'll be wearing all the time will look just like this. So today's called Brain Aware Perception. I'm so pumped to share this with you today. So I'll put all the notes that I'm going to read from in the description of the podcast. And you just go over to any podcast platform. iTunes is where most people go, and just subscribe to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast. And all the stuff that I talk about, I reference in the notes. This is actually being streamed as well to YouTube. So if you go to the Rise Up with Dragon YouTube channel, this is being streamed there as well. And I'm wearing my Embrace the Suck shirt today. Because I just, in a blessed way, just acknowledge all the suck. So a lot of good things coming. So I found this quote, and this is a quote by Osho, and it says, "The mind is a beautiful servant, but a dangerous master." And I just love that. So today's Rise Up, which is aptly named Brain Aware Perception, today's Rise Up is about flipping that switch and taking back control from the mastermind, right? The master of your mind, flipping the flipping the switch and moving from the mastermind to that of the servant mind, meaning your mind serves you. Pretty cool, right? So I want to give credit where credit is due. So today's inspiration for today's Rise Up, because I do this journaling process every day, and today's inspiration that kind of drove me to do this was, first I'd say God and the universe, because that's a big part. My parents, and then who as well as whoever may be in control of this potential matrix / simulation. I want to thank all of those people and things and entities for creating me on this day 52 years ago. So that's where the inspiration came from, as well as the newest book that I'm into reading. And I recommend this massively recommend this book to everybody. It's a book called What Happened to You? And it's by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. Fantastic book. Very, very in line with my new book that's coming out, Makes Sense. So go get that book. Awesome. And I see all the birthday wishes coming in. That's pretty cool. And whenever I get birthday wishes, it's an interesting thing, like, why do we celebrate people's birthdays? It's like we acknowledge them on their birthday and it's like a celebration. But at the same time, we talk a lot about here the reality of just acknowledging how challenging life is, right? So it's just fun for me when somebody says, "Hey, happy birthday," right? It's kind of like it's like saying good day to somebody. Is it happy? I'm happy, but that's a choice. I could very easily be not happy with everything that's been going on. So here's how it goes. It's fascinating, to look at this concept of brain aware perception. It's a fascinating way of, describing what it is that I share in my book. And that's called Make Sense. That's the book. It's a whole concept and a story and a journey about learning how to make sense. And I use this concept that I teach in this system called the interface response system. It's another way of awakening logic and rationale, or rational logic and rational consciousness during the program stress response system. Here's what I mean about that. We all have this stress response system, right? And the problem with the stress response system is it runs without us knowing, and we get into trouble and we get distracted and all these things happen. So the concept that we're going to talk about today is this awakening to this idea that there's this brain, this programmed automatic autopilot brain that we can be aware of while we're trying to create a perception, right? So brain aware perception, which is what I'm sharing today, refers to the acknowledgement of the complex systems that are running in the brain when attempting to create a perception, right? So here you are trying to consciously control your reality. I always refer to myself as a reality bender. And what that means is I'm trying to grab control of my perception. But brain awareness perception is like, well, hold on a second, dude. The reason why it's so hard is there's all this other shit going on, right? So brain aware perception refers to the acknowledgement of the complex systems that are running in the brain when you're attempting to create a perception of anything that you and your brain and your, all the organs that are assimilated with, perception, like your eyes and your nose and your ear and all that stuff. They're all trying to interface with something, right? So if you're not aware of that stuff, if you're not aware of all that stuff going on, then you're going to trigger an automatic knee-jerk reflex that has been programmed into the lower layers of your brain. Now, when I say lower layers of your brain, South Africa noise in the background, police car going by. Chicken and I, by the way, I'll get back to the lower levels of your brain. Chicken and I, the other night, we were sitting here and we heard a terrible motorcycle crash. Oh, thanks for the birthday stuff. We heard a guy like crash and then just slide all the way down the street. And we had this moment where like, should we go out there? And we did. And it was just this young kid. And unfortunately he was drunk and just big boo-boo. And we took care of him. So those are some of the things that happen outside of my high-tech podcast studio in South Africa. So we were talking about the knee-jerk reflex that happens. And it's programmed into our lower levels of our brain, the lower layers of our brain. Things like, you can learn about this stuff in the stress response system, levels like the amygdala, the hippocampus, and then there's this prefrontal cortex known as the CEO. So in short, when we're referring to the stress response system, remember, we're talking about brain awareness right now. I see Valerie Bercier is here. She's the one that recommended that book, What Happened to You, and she knows where I got this from. So that knee-jerk reflex that comes. So in short, the challenges with any sort of post-traumatic stress disorder, which I think we always assimilate has something to do with war, but any sort of PTSD are wired into the lower areas of the brain, which are the areas that we don't have much say over. See, this is why it's important to become aware of this stuff. There's things going on in our brain, like thoughts, right, that are attached to post-traumatic stress disorder that might be actually hardwired into your brain from a long time ago. You're completely unaware and not thinking about that, but your stress response system's connected to that. You got to know about that shit if you're going to try to become more conscious. So, and on my birthday, that's what I'm doing, is I'm in deep contemplation of everything that's going on and has gone on, and I'm trying to find the lesson with all this shit. There's got to be a pony somewhere. So I have to become aware of my brain's involvement in my perception, right? Or else I might come up with the idea that my life sucks, right? So the areas that we do control, remember those areas, the amygdala, hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, those are the areas we don't control, right? Even if you're like a super conscious being, you don't control those areas. You can neuroplastically rewire them down the road, but you don't control those areas. So don't try to, right? So the areas that we do control are the outer and upper levels of the brain, like places we call the frontal cortex. Now, when we attempt to gain consciousness, which is what we keep talking about on this podcast, I had somebody give me a compliment the other day about the podcast, which we have like 250 episodes now, which is nuts. Top 1% of the world. They were just saying they love the fact that when they listen to my podcast, it makes them feel like they're tapping into higher levels of consciousness. So the areas that we do control, like the frontal cortex, right, help us gain consciousness in any sort of interface, right? That's what make humans special, right? We actually have areas where we can that we do control, well, to an extent, right? So we're only claiming control, though, over the parts of the brain that we control, not those other parts. That's part of the awareness right now, right? So the parts that we do not trigger, the parts that we don't control trigger a lightning fast, faster than you can know, lightning fast programmed and hardwired response, which is built by referencing the past. That's what the amygdala and the hippocampus are about. We always check with past memories, and it happens faster than you can know it, and it's out of your control. It's unconscious, autopilot, knee-jerk reflex. So lightning fast programmed and hardwired response, by referencing the past experiences and conditioned beliefs that helped us once at one time when they happened, they helped us evade physical and emotional trauma. So these memories that we go back of something that was tough, right? Our stress response system, that is the same thing that helps you jump out of the way if a car's coming, it helped us, right? But the problem is, it helped us back then, but it's hardwired into these areas that we don't control. And the problem is they're no longer relevant, meaning they're no longer helpful in what we're trying to do today as we're trying to become conscious, right? So for example, and I'll give you an example that'll hit home. And I'm offering this to you because if you become aware of this stuff, you're going to have a much better time and have a much better life experience. So for example, someone experiencing the post-traumatic stress of common things that we hear about, like war, right? Somebody that's done, that's been in battle and war, or perhaps even child abuse, or even lesser perceived events like divorce and financial struggle, right? Those things are hardwired into their stress response system. So once they're triggered by something, I'll give you an example transparently. And you'll read about this in my book. When I was 11 years old, on or about this day of my birthday, is when my parents got divorced. My parents are good people, and They had their own reasons for doing it, and I had my own way of coping with that. But I always feel awkward and weird and in a bad mood automatically. That's my stress response system when it's my birthday, right? So I'm working on that. So that's the problem, right? That's the problem with this. So once those things are triggered, right, like my birthday, they fire off without you having any say. So that's the awareness part. Once they fire off, just like the jury in a court. Here's the analogy. Just like the jury in a court that has a verdict and it proposes it to the judge, but in this case, it's the prefrontal cortex. They say, jury, do you have a verdict, right? And you check memories and divorce and war and child abuse and all that stuff, right? Say, do you have a verdict? And then they propose it, to the prefrontal cortex. And the verdict is then from the prefrontal cortex is offered to your frontal cortex. If you're aware of this shit, you're going to have a better time. So the prefrontal cortex, the CEO, takes that information. Here's the verdict to your frontal cortex, and your frontal cortex, right? That's that top level that you have the most control over, but now it's being influenced, right? Your frontal cortex is a part of your brain that actually makes the call or decides what the right thing to do is. So if you're consciously saying this is the right thing to do, you might be unconscious to the fact that you've been persuaded in a certain way, right? So voila, that's how you create your perception and what we call reality. So my upload and offering to you today as my birthday gift to you, right? And I put some asks in my birthday post, but my gift to you on my birthday, because I like to give, is an awakening of sorts, right? Of all of this stuff that you can now refer to, because you've got these three words, as brain aware perception. So this brings color to a value of placing your response system, this automatic response system that you're now aware of. And it's got PTSD built into it, hardwired into it. The only way you can reverse this stuff is by like hypnosis or consistency. You're going to consistently rewire this stuff, and it takes time. I'm still doing it. My birthday's getting a little bit better. It's getting easier, not easy, but easier, right? And now we know about this brain perception. So this brings color to the value of placing that response system, right? That brain, that all that stuff, placing it on what I call a curious pause, right? A curious pause. Now, how do you do that? I always recommend to people to say, So when you start feeling icky, when I start getting triggered, I feel icky about my birthday or divorce or anything like that, right? I just put a curious pause on that. And what happens when I pause it, I'm not saying it's over yet, but I pause. I say, hold on a second consciously, and I step into this space. This is what brain aware perception is. It's just these three new words that I learned. When I step into that space, because I've paused, right, I can say what's actually happening now, right? It's just my birthday. And it gave me the ability, as it can give you, and you can do this all day today in these 24 that you have in front of you, and it can give you the ability to go, oh, maybe that's not a problem. Maybe I don't have any control over that. Maybe that has nothing to do with me. Maybe that's their problem, right? In that space. And then that gives you the ability, right, to make a conscious, logical, rational decision. So in closing, after you say that, it's about practicing the power of the pause, and then create the space to perceive reality with conscious observation rather than unconscious, triggered by the whole thing, or what we can now call brain aware perception. Happy birthday to me. I love and appreciate you all. If you want to join the Rise Up community, just go to the Instagram account, Dr. JC Doornick. We've got a growing community in there. We're having a ball. We're interacting with each other every morning, and we're getting conscious, right? And guess what the theme of the week is today? It's about perception and brain aware perception. We're going to go in deep into this every morning for about 10, 15 minutes, and we interact with each other, and they're going to get the book and all that stuff. So love and appreciate you all. Thanks for spending a couple minutes with me today. And I hope that my day is a great day for you. Bye-bye now.